Hi, we're going to talk about needles and threads and embroidery supplies. So this is a little ring that I have with hand-dyed embroidery threads, mostly silks, but there's a variety there. And we'll talk a little bit about the different types and the different sizes of needles. So this is a handy-dandy thing I like that shows you different pearl cottons, and I'll get into that in a minute, and what size matches with what size embroidery needle. This is Laura Wazalowski's card. If you ever buy anything from her or run into her, she always has that on the back, and it's very handy. I keep it in my box of threads. So here's some threads. These are the standard things that you're going to run across. These first ones are pearl cottons. The first one here is a 3, so that's a rather large. A 5. These are 8s. So those were both DMC, and this is a Valdani hand dye, and then this one is a just a plain DMC 8 to show you the two different brands there. And then you've got your standard flosses. So this is DMCs. Let me turn that around. DMCs. And they come in a lot of colors, and that is a stranded thread. Where's my end? Here's one. So here's a stranded one, which is the floss, and then you can separate out the threads, whereas if I can get a hold of them, so they usually come with 6 strands, and you can work with as many strands as you'd like. With these, they are a 2-ply twisted, but you don't separate them apart. They stay twisted together. Okay, so that's the pearls are the ones that are twisted and stay together. The floss is the separated 6-strand, and that's the most common that you'll find places. It's a personal preference whether you like the floss or the pearl. The nice thing about the floss is that you have a lot of variety with one strand. You can pick out as many or as little as you want. With the pearl, you're stuck with whatever size it is that you have. So, but the pearl keeps its twist the whole way through, whereas this has a twist to it, but it does once you separate them out. If you separate them out, although 6 is rather heavy and we don't use that a lot, but if you separate them out, then you've lost your twist. Some people like them to be nice and flat. Some people like to twist them themselves as they work. So because of that, I don't like the floss as much. So my preference is really for the pearl cotton. Now some flosses come in a strand, just like in a skein, just like this, where, hello, where am I? There we go. Where the ends, there's just a single end and the rest of it is all still continuous. But some of them come where the ends are all cut. So this one, every single end is cut, as is this one. So you can see at that end it's not cut, and at this end it's all cut. And then you untwist them all, and you can put them around one of those rings, like I have the threads on, and then you just pull out the ones that you need, rather than cutting off lengths. Okay, so let's get to needles. So a variety of needles. See, I keep this little container here. I guess that's probably a cigar container here with some needles in it. These are mostly beading needles. So I include those here because sometimes if you are needing to go through beads, you'll want a slimmer needle. The eye is not very big, so they are a little bit harder to work with if you're going to be doing embroidery threads. And it is always better to use the correct thread for beading. It is stronger and made for beading, and beads can have sharp edges that can cut through your embroidery thread. So I usually will use that unless I'm wanting to integrate both the beading and the thread at the same time, where the thread is visible. So these are some embroidery needles. Those are a size 4. So then we can look at our handy dandy chart. If I get in there. So 4 embroidery needle is used with a size 8 pearl thread. So there you go. And of course, there's lots of types and sizes of embroidery needles. So that I even used, come on, focus, her chart, and I wrote it on there so that later on I wouldn't have to look. So that one is the right size. Let's see, I think it's a 5 for the Pearl Cotton 12. And the Pearl Cotton 12 is a pretty fine one. I didn't show one there. But my favorite needles are these Tulip. They come from Japan, and they come in this box. Let me see, can I fit the whole thing in there? So they come in this box here. Embroidery needles, and I think this one has a variety of needles inside of it. I got that from Crimson Tate. And you can see the little tube in there. And they are a very nice needle. They glide through just beautifully. Okay, so a quick little thing I'll show you is that I tend to use my own hand-dyed threads. As you saw, you can see here I've got a case that I keep them in, not very tidy, but you can see the variety of types of thread. See, this one here is a silk pearl, and that's one of my favorites. That's one of Laura Wasilowski's pearl cottons. That there, I think, is a darning thread, so it's a kind of like a floss, but it's there's no twist there. So just a variety of threads. If I find them, I'll dye them up. And the way I dye them is I wrap them onto these floss bows. So I've got my very long lens on here so I can get in good and close, but then it makes it hard for me to show you some of these. So I just wrap the threads on those. Another way I do it is to make a skein. Okay, so these are some of the silk that I've tied into a skein, wrapped into a skein, and then I tie it together just for handling. So then when I'm gonna dye it, I will wrap another thread around in several locations and then very gently tie that back up. And then I can loosely handle it so I can get some good dye penetration in there. And I've got several colors here that I've done. And I just love this silk. In fact, I think I have the spool of it, cone, handy. Let's see. So it's just a big giant cone. So that should last me a good long time. Oh, here's one with, oh, I think it may be still attached, but here's one with some of the yarns on it, threads on it. Just in case you are going to do that, you do need to leave it very loose or you get white spots in the underneath where the dye doesn't penetrate well. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers it. And here's a looser one of those so you can see the ring a little bit better. It's just one of those that opens up there. And then you can put your cards on there. And they do come in plastic and paper. This is a paper one, and you can see it doesn't last as well since it's paper. If you're traveling with it and stuff, it gets a little battered. And these are plastic and they last a little bit better. But there you go. I think that's everything about threads and needles. Thank you.